Imagine for a moment someone you love, a friend, a family member, leaves home for an ordinary day and simply vanishes, without a trace, without a logical explanation. The door closes, and the silence that follows is filled with questions that echo for years, decades, sometimes forever. What happened? Where did they go? And, most importantly, why were they never found? The human mind, in its incessant search for order and meaning, struggles with the inexplicable, trying to fill the gaps with theories, fears and, at times, the purest fantasy. But what if the inexplicable is, in fact, a horror so profound and personal that reality itself refuses to accept it? Good evening, or good morning, or good afternoon, whatever time you're joining us. I'm Utopico, and today, we're going to dive into one of the most intriguing, disturbing, and persistently unsolved cases in American criminal history, the infamous Icebox murders. Prepare for a journey into the abysses of the unknown, where hope mixes with the deepest uncertainty, and where the search for justice clashes with the coldness of a mystery that defies logic and human comprehension, leaving a trail of unanswered questions that echo to this day, haunting the city of Houston and the imagination of all who know this case, and becoming one of the most infamous cold cases in American history, a true nightmare that refuses to be forgotten. In this video, we're going to explore a puzzle with missing pieces, a mystery that has cried out for answers for almost 6 decades, but which over decades has resisted all attempts to unravel it, revealing truths that are at times stranger and more frightening than fiction. And, at the end, I want to know your opinion. What do you think really happened to Fred and Edwina Rogers? And what is the fate of their son, Charles Rogers, the prime suspect who vanished into thin air, as if he had evaporated from the face of the earth? Do you believe in the conspiracy theories surrounding this case involving intelligence agencies and state secrets? Or is there a darker, more personal explanation behind such an atrocity, a family secret that refuses to be revealed and that continues to corrode the soul of a city? With every detail we present, you'll feel the anguish of uncertainty, the frustration of unanswered questions, and the persistence of hope. It's a story that reminds us of the fragility of life and the complexity of the human mind, where truth often hides in the shadows, and where the search for justice can lead to unexpected and painful paths. Join us on this journey where reality surpasses fiction and the unknown invites us to reflect on human nature and its deepest mysteries, and on how a crime can haunt a family and the city for generations, leaving a legacy of doubts and speculations that refuse to disappear, and that continue to fuel popular imagination. But before we start, if you're fascinated by mysteries and true stories that grip you from beginning to end, that make you question reality and invite you to unravel enigmas, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell to not miss any of our next videos. Your participation is fundamental so that more people can learn about and reflect on these enigmas, and so that the search for truth continues to illuminate the darkest corners of history, ensuring that victims are not forgotten, and that justice one day can prevail even in the face of such a complex and seemingly insoluble mystery, and that the truth, however painful, finally comes to light. The last thing anyone expected to find in a family fridge was a nightmare. In 1965, in Houston, Texas, the tranquility of a suburban home was brutally shattered by a discovery that shocked even the most experienced detectives and shook the community to its foundations. Fred and Edwina Rogers, an elderly couple, were found in their residence on Driscoll Street, but not in the way anyone would expect. Their bodies were brutally murdered and dismembered, their remains carefully arranged inside the very appliance that should store food, as if they were pieces of a macabre jigsaw puzzle, a scene of indescribable horror that defied human comprehension, and that pointed to a single, disturbing suspect, the couple's own son, Charles Rogers, who simply vanished into thin air as if he had never existed, leaving behind a trail of blood and a mystery that has endured for decades. haunting the city of Houston and the imagination of all who know this case, and becoming one of the most infamous cold cases in American history, a true nightmare that refuses to be forgotten, and that continues to cry out for justice. The discovery of the bodies of Fred and Edwina Rogers on the 20th of June 1965, Father's Day, marked the beginning of one of the most bizarre and macabre cases in American criminal history. Fred, 81, was bludgeoned to death with a hammer, had his eyes gouged out, and, in an act of extreme depravity, his genitals were removed. Edwina, 73, was bludgeoned and shot in the head, in a cold and calculated execution style. The brutality of the act suggested not only hatred and fury, but also a disturbing knowledge of anatomy and a frightening, almost ritualistic premeditation that bordered on sadism. The bodies were dismembered in the upstairs bathroom, and police noted that there was very little blood in the house, indicating that the scene had been meticulously cleaned. After the murders, a clear sign of planning and premeditation on the part of the killer, who acted with coldness and calculation. The main clue found was a blood-stained sore in Charles's bedroom, the couple's son, but he had vanished without a trace, as if he had evaporated from the face of the earth. Charles Rogers, a seismologist and pilot, with a history of reclusive behavior and a mysterious life, became the sole suspect. He was never found and was legally declared dead in absentia in July 1975. The case officially remains unsolved, an enigma that continues to haunt the city of Houston and challenge the minds of investigators and true crime enthusiasts to this day, with new theories and speculations constantly emerging and the hope of a resolution diminishing with each passing year. Authorities, led by Detective Frank Holliday, plunged into a complex and frustrating investigation. The crime scene, although clean, revealed disturbing details. The way the bodies were dismembered and stored in the fridge suggested an act of extreme dehumanization, almost ritualistic, that bordered on sadism and psychopathy. The absence of Charles Rogers, the couple's son, immediately put him in the spotlight. Charles was known for his intelligence, but also for his eccentricity and a troubled relationship with his parents. He lived in a separate room in the house, and his communication with Fred and Edwina was often through notes, which already indicated a peculiar and dysfunctional family dynamic, and an emotional detachment that could have escalated into violence. Police discovered that Charles had a history of mental problems and had been admitted to psychiatric institutions in the past, which added a layer of complexity to his already enigmatic personality and raised questions about his sanity and his ability to commit such atrocities. The search for Charles extended nationwide, with police following false leads and rumors, but he seemed to have vanished without a trace, fueling the theory that he had fled abroad, or that he had been murdered by someone who wanted to silence him, perhaps because of his secrets or his links to the criminal underworld. The lack of a body and the absence of any concrete evidence of his death only deepened the mystery, turning Charles Rogers into an almost mythical figure, a ghost that haunts the case to this day. The Icebox murders draw attention for a combination of factors that make them one of the most shocking and intriguing cases in criminal history, transcending time and space and becoming a true icon of the true crime genre. The extreme and grotesque violence of the murders, with the dismemberment and storage of the bodies in the fridge, is something that deeply disturbs the human psyche, evoking a visceral horror and a sense of repulsion. The idea that a son could commit such an atrocity against his own parents and then disappear without a trace is something that defies comprehension and morality, and makes us question the limits of human evil and an individual's capacity to become a monster. Furthermore, the family mystery surrounding the disappearance of the son and prime suspect Charles Rogers, and the allegations of a possible police conspiracy, Charles Rogers' involvement with intelligence agencies such as the CIA, fuel popular imagination and transform the case into a true real-life nightmare with elements of a spy thriller and a touch of science fiction, making it even more fascinating and terrifying. The absence of a clear outcome and the persistence of the mystery for decades ensure that this case continues to be revisited and debated, generating new theories and discussions in true crime forums, podcasts, and documentaries to this day, keeping alive the flame of the enigma and the hope that the truth one day may come to light. The bizarre nature of the crime, the lack of a clear motive, and the disappearance of the prime suspect create a vacuum of information that is filled with speculation and theories, making the case even more fascinating and frightening, a true labyrinth of secrets that refuses to be unraveled. The fascination with the Icebox murders also lies in their ability to evoke primary fears, familial betrayal, domestic violence taken to the extreme, and the idea that evil can hide behind the most common appearances, behind closed doors, in seemingly normal homes. The figure of Charles Rogers, an intelligent and seemingly harmless man who becomes the prime suspect in such a heinous crime, challenges our notions of who is capable of committing such acts and makes us question the true nature of human beings and the fragility of the psyche. The press at the time covered the case voraciously, turning it into a spectacle of horror and mystery, and the nickname Icebox murders became synonymous with cruelty and enigma. The Rogers story is a grim reminder that, behind the closed doors of seemingly normal homes, terrible secrets and unimaginable violence can hide, and that the truth, at times, is stranger and more disturbing than fiction and harder to reach, leaving a legacy of trauma and unanswered questions that haunt the collective memory of Houston. But that part wasn't released by the police. The investigation, despite being intense, was marked by gaps and theories that were never fully proven, fueling public imagination and deepening the mystery. The brutality of the acts suggested cold and calculated planning, and the meticulous cleaning of the crime scene indicated a killer with time and method, someone who knew what they were doing and how to cover their tracks, a true crime professional who acted with coldness and precision. Police found the blood-stained sore in Charles's bedroom, a compelling piece of evidence that directly linked him to the crime. But the absence of the main suspect, Charles, turned the case into a labyrinth of speculation and conspiracy theories. He had vanished into thin air, leaving behind a trail of blood and a mystery that has endured for decades, challenging authorities and logic. The lack of a body and the absence of Charles Rogers fueled the wildest theories, from a successful escape to a distant country, to a planned murder to cover up even bigger secrets involving government agencies and secret operations, a true spy movie plot unfolding in real life. With each new false lead, with each unconfirmed rumor, the case became more complex and enigmatic, turning it into a real playground for conspiracy theorists, who found in the Icebox murders case fertile ground for their speculations and for the creation of narratives that defy reality. One of the most persistent and fascinating theories is that Charles Rogers had ties to the CIA or other intelligence agencies. This theory gained traction due to his background as a pilot and seismologist, professions that could be used as a cover for secret activities and clandestine operations, and that would give him the ability to disappear without a trace. The idea that he might have been extracted by his government contacts to prevent him from revealing secrets, or that he might have been murdered to be silenced, adds a layer of intrigue and danger to the case, turning it into a true spy thriller unfolding behind the scenes of power. This theory, although without concrete proof, resonates with the public, who distrust secret government operations and who seek explanations for the inexplicable, and who believe that the government may be involved in cover-ups and manipulations. The absence of Charles Rogers, the prime suspect, and the lack of a clear outcome for the case only reinforced the belief that there is more behind the Icebox murders than simple domestic violence, and that the truth is being hidden by powerful forces. The story of Charles Rogers became an urban myth, a tale of espionage and betrayal that mixes with family tragedy, making the case even more captivating and terrifying, a true enigma that defies logic and reason, and that continues to fuel popular imagination with its twists and secrets. Who was Charles Rogers? a seismologist and pilot, described as reclusive, who communicated with his parents by notes. Neighbors didn't even know he lived there. But the theories about his disappearance and the motive for the crimes are even more disturbing and complex. Some believe that Charles had links to the CIA and even to the assassination of John F. Kennedy, using his skills and contacts to flee the country and hide under a new identity, perhaps somewhere in Central or South America, living a secret life protected by his contacts. This theory, although lacking concrete evidence, is fueled by his ability to disappear without a trace and by the bizarre nature of the crime, which appears to have been executed with an unusual coldness and precision for a crime of passion, suggesting training or a calculating mind. Others, like forensic accountant Hugh Gardner and his wife Martha, who investigated the case for years on end, believe that Charles planned the murders for years, motivated by an abusive father and parents who were con artists stealing large sums of money from him. They theorize that Charles fled to Honduras and was killed there in a wage dispute with miners, but the truth is that he was never found, and the case officially remains unsolved, one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in American criminal history. The House of Horror on Driscoll Street remained empty and was demolished in 1972, making way for condominiums in 2000. But the shadow of the Icebox murders, with its extreme violence, the family mystery, and the disappearance of the prime suspect, continues to haunt Houston, a grim reminder that not all crimes are solved, and that the truth, at times, remains hidden in the shadows, waiting to be discovered, and that justice, at times, is delayed and elusive. In 2025, the Icebox murders case continues to be an active cold case, although the chances of a resolution are minimal due to the passage of time and the lack of new evidence. However, the story continues to be revisited in true crime podcasts, documentaries, and articles, keeping alive the search for answers and the memory of the victims. With each passing year, new theories emerge, and the hope of a definitive resolution, though tenuous, persists. Forensic technology has advanced significantly since 1965, and the possibility of re-examining old evidence with new techniques, such as genealogical DNA, offers a small, but real, chance that the mystery can finally be unraveled. The Icebox murders case is a testament to human resilience in the face of terror, and the persistence of hope amidst darkness, and a reminder that the truth one day may come to light, bringing peace to the victims and their families, and closing a dark chapter in American history, and that the search for justice should never cease, even after decades of silence. And you, what do you think really happened to Fred and Edwina Rogers? Who do you believe is truly responsible for this tragedy that has haunted Houston for almost 6 decades? Do you believe Charles Rogers disappeared on his own, or that he was silenced by greater forces, as some theories suggest? Do you think modern technology will finally bring the answers the city awaits? Or is this case destined to remain an eternal enigma, a grim reminder of the human capacity for cruelty and the elusiveness of justice? Tell me in the comments, I'll read them all. Your perspective is very important to enrich this discussion and help us better understand these mysteries, and perhaps, together, we can shed new light on this enigma that has endured 4 decades, and that cries out for a resolution. If you're fascinated by true stories that grip you from beginning to end, where mystery defies logic and reality surpasses fiction, where the search for justice is tireless, and where truth hides in the shadows, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. That way, you won't miss any of our next videos, and you lines help us continue to bring you quality content. Your interaction is the fuel that drives us to continue exploring the darkest corners of the human mind and the enigmas that surround us, and to fight for a world where justice prevails even in the face of the most bizarre mysteries. In the next video, we lines talk about an even more bizarre disappearance that will leave you breathless and questioning everything you know about reality. See you there.